Actually, the Hawk is the father of the Patriot.
The Pentagon officially took the Hawk off combat duty in 2002, but right now the Hawk is being supplied to Ukraine.
Dear Americans, thank you for all support you already provided to Ukraine.
Russia was so afraid that it sent 3 new stealth missiles to destroy it.
That was the hardest fight because 3 Kh-69 missiles were coming straight at us, constantly changing altitude.
It was a 3-on-3 duel, and the Hawk won. Is that just luck? Because the Hawk's analog brain operates on the principle of a Coca-Cola vending machine. It shouldn't be capable of standing up to modern threats. And yet there it is, burning 3 stealth missiles out of the sky. How did it happen that the old Hawk, which appeared in the middle of the last century, is shooting down new Russian missiles on par with modern systems? And actually doing it better, because by the book, Patriot needs 2 missiles per target. 3 targets? That's 6 missiles. Hawk did it with 3.
Its missiles know how to attack from above like the way a hawk dives on its prey.
Maybe we don't fully understand the Hawk. Maybe the Americans retired it prematurely. Or maybe this isn't quite the Hawk missile system everyone thought they knew. You're about to see it all with your own eyes and decide for yourself. Hit like so other viewers can find this video. And if you're interested in how weapons actually perform in a real war, not on a training range somewhere.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Weapons of Victory channel. Wish you luck and hope to see you soon.
So let's start with the tactics, past and present. In the late 1950s, NATO was bracing for a Soviet lightning strike on Western Europe. The Hawk's tactical mission was to shield the front line from attack. Aircraft, helicopters, and the cruise missiles that were just beginning to appear at that time. In other words, the Hawk was meant to be a shield for infantry and armored vehicles on the march. This contraption, the most recognizable part of the whole system, but the USSR never dared start that conflict. So the Hawk's combat baptism didn't happen in Europe. The Six-Day War, 1967. Legend has it. First combat launch, direct hit. Too bad it was friendly fire. Talk about a rough start, but after that, everything went smoothly. The Hawk fully lived up to its official name, but the Americans nicknamed it Hit and Watch It Kill, which is even more accurate. Before the Russo-Ukrainian War, the Hawk had over 100 confirmed kills worldwide, so it arrived in Ukraine holding the title of one of the most effective SAM systems in the world. The Hawk is a star, but an aging one, because it is very, very slow.
This is the control panel with different operating modes. This is the computer that processes information from the antenna, then that data goes to the command post.
The computing power of this computer is effectively zero. Strictly speaking, it isn't a computer at all. It's an analog information coordination central that links the search radars to the illumination radars.
This is the very first version of the Hawk that the US handed over.
Its hardwired logic cannot be reprogrammed. Instead of a processor and software code, there are blocks of resistors, capacitors, and transistors. Just imagine the processing speed, and something had to be done about that. But alongside that, another problem emerged: the sheer bulk of the Hawk missile system. There's just too much metal, cables, wiring, and trailers here. Add to that the loaders, 6 launchers, and the missiles to go with them. Every element of the battery is towed separately by standard Army tractors. The total number of towing vehicles reaches 15 units, plus up to 70 personnel.
The Hawk needs a large team. Some maintain the missiles, others handle the launchers, others do repairs. It's titanic work.
For comparison, the Iris-T performs the same tasks with just 3 to 4 vehicles. And finally, the Hawk's biggest problem, the one that kills any enthusiasm, its missile requires continuous illumination of the target by its own radar all the way to impact. There it is, with 2 large antennas on a single platform. Looks like a giant pair of binoculars, doesn't it? And that's not a coincidence. This thing is going to surprise you.
Operating principle: 1 radar, 1 missile, 1 target.
But a battery only has 2 high-power illumination radars, meaning you have 6 launchers and 18 missiles, but you can only engage 2 targets simultaneously. While the missile is in flight, the radar cannot look away for a single second. Lose the illumination, the missile goes blind. Picture it. Somewhere out in a field, A Hawk battery is set up. Generators roar like they're powering a small factory. Radars are blasting constantly into the airwaves. Cables scattered across the ground. The crew sprinting between trailers and launchers, and this entire contraption can simultaneously engage 2 targets. The Hawk turned out to be not only very slow and very bulky, but also conceptually locked into the logic of 1960s warfare. Yes, it's a masterpiece of analog military engineering, but let's leave that for modern marvels on the History Channel. We cover combat effectiveness. The Hawk is a weapon from an era when individual bombers or small flights of aircraft crossed the sky, not swarms of cheap drones and dozens of cruise missiles simultaneously. And here's how Ukrainians forced it to work in the 21st century. First, in Ukraine, Hawks are not positioned at the front line but in the second or third layer of air defense. Their mission isn't to shield troops on the march as in the 1960s. It's to intercept targets approaching cities and critical infrastructure. That's a complete change in tactical role.
We have 4 launches to our name, 4 cruise missiles shot down.
Second, dispersal. Ukrainians have stretched the system's elements across several kilometers, about 2 miles or more. Destroying the battery in a single strike is no longer possible.
We basically live in fields. The main thing is to keep the personnel alive. Then we can do anything, even the impossible.
Third, integration with other sensors. Someone else finds the target. A different radar, a different system. The Hawk is now a team player, but its role hasn't changed. Hit and watch it kill.
Our tally is 40 Shaheeds plus 14 missiles.
The integration of the Analog Information Coordination Central with digital systems is probably the most important change in the Hawks currently fighting in Ukraine. This happens through modules that convert digital signals to analog and back again. Roughly speaking, it's Google Translate, converting from Sanskrit to English. Thanks to this, the Hawk can now search for targets not only with its own radars, but has learned to listen to the entire Ukrainian air defense network. It no longer thinks for itself. It strikes when told. Here's how that works against Russian Ha-69 cruise missiles. A difficult, low observable target. This missile flies low and is nearly invisible to the Hawk's own radars, but there not even needed a different external radar spots the missile earlier. That could be a NASAMS or Patriot radar. Father and son working together. The target coordinates are instantly fed to the command post. The module translates the digital signal to analog. The ICC swings the illumination radar precisely to the right sector and waits for the missile to appear. And then the high-power illumination radar locks onto the missile and doesn't let go. Launch. Despite being considered old, the Hawk's 40-kilometer range is twice that of the German Iris-T SLS, and its ceiling of 18 kilometers is almost on par with the Iris-T SLM. But the Hawk's real value isn't in its maximum performance figures. It's in its minimum ones. The KH-69 can fly as low as 20 meters, which helps it hide from radars behind terrain features and infrastructure objects. Can the Hawk miss? Yes, if the missile's speed drops to 0 kilometers per hour. Which, as you understand, is nonsense. Under any other circumstances, the Hawk's radar will see the KH-69. The high-power illumination radar is tuned to hear only the frequency that corresponds to the missile's speed. Everything else is simply empty noise to it. But there is another detail that can give the American missile trouble. The Russian KH-69 has a square cross-section and a coating of special radar-absorbing materials. This reduces its radar cross-section. In certain aspects, the Hawk's missile can lose the target, and that's when things get really interesting.
If the missile loses the target, it climbs upward and its seeker looks down, searching for the lost target. As soon as the seeker picks up the signal again, the missile immediately dives back onto the target.
This is likely referring to manual override. In one of our videos about NASAMS, a Ukrainian operator said he prefers manual override. How that works on NASAMS you can check out after watching this video. And here's how it works on the Hawk. When the automation loses a target maneuvering very low over the ground, the operator steps in. He manually helps the high-power illumination radar maintain track. Sometimes just a few seconds is enough for the radar to confidently reacquire the target. On screen, this doesn't look like a modern video game. No sleek 3D models, just noise, clutter, and a small bright dot that you absolutely cannot lose. It's precisely because of these manual skills of Ukrainian operators that the old Hawk has proven more effective than some newer systems where the brains trust the automation too much and simply shut down when the signal is lost. The MIM-23's warhead weighs around 75 kilograms. That's significantly more than most short-range missiles. And when it detonates near a cruise missile, it literally creates a cloud of metal in the air that tears the KH-69 to pieces. So the old Hawk suddenly showed its teeth. Its value cannot be overstated, and its prospects are very bright. Because unlike modern systems, the Hawk has no missile shortage. If the Patriot is a Ferrari because each PAC-3 missile costs between $2 and $4 million, and the US produces only a few hundred per year, then Hawk missiles were produced for decades and stockpiled all over the world. Taiwan alone has 900 missiles it no longer needs. They're cheap, and most importantly, they already exist. Of course, none of this would have been possible if the US and allies hadn't upgraded the Hawk missile system before handing it to Ukraine. But not all systems went through modernization. For example, most M777s arrived in Ukraine bare, without the digital fire control system. Hard to recognize the king of the herd in that pile, isn't it? The folks at BAE Systems are in shock at what Ukrainians are doing with it.
Thanks to our partners, we have the most advanced version of the 777, the A2.
It's fitted with a digital fire control system, the DFCS. That's the 777's ACE card. But before being shipped to Ukraine, it was removed. The Pentagon was afraid the technology would fall into Russian hands. Eventually, though, fully equipped howitzers were spotted at the front. But Ukrainians started pulling the digital fire control system themselves, on their own initiative. So what happened?
The guys are stripping out the electronics so the Russians can't track them down.
Does the digital fire control system actually give away the howitzer's position, or is this just soldier instinct? And the big question, without all those electronic gadgets, has the king of the herd become just another ordinary howitzer? First, we're heading to a firing position to see what the 777 can do in ways the Pentagon can't quite figure out how it's being pulled off without hundreds of millions of dollars. Then we're visiting the location where these wrecks get torn down to the last bolt. Hard to recognize the king of the herd in that pile, isn't it? The folks at BAE Systems are in shock at what Ukrainians are doing with it. But let's start with why the American brain doesn't fit this war. So the digital fire control system consists of several modules mounted on the howitzer: a digital fire control computer, a laser muzzle velocity sensor, and the communication location enclosure, which handles navigation, communications, and coordinate transmission. Here's how they work together. When a commander receives target coordinates, target type, and mission priority, the first thing he needs to know is where his own gun actually is. That's the job of the CLE module, which uses GPS and inertial navigation to instantly lock in the precise coordinates and orientation of the gun in space. Once target coordinates and weather data are entered, the digital computer spits out the firing solution in seconds: barrel elevation angle, azimuth, charge type, and power.
This is the standard charge, which can be reduced by removing one section. And this is the full charge, maximum.
The commander gives the order. At that exact moment, the laser sensor captures the real muzzle velocity of the round, because barrel wear, powder temperature, and humidity all produce a different result every single time. Even a small difference in velocity at a distance of 20 kilometers translates into hundreds of meters of deviation. The sensor automatically applies the correction for the next shot.
The 777 hits far and hits very accurately, so we're doing a lot of damage to the Russians.
For an experienced artilleryman, getting a 777 with the brain is like trading a bicycle for a Harley. But speed and convenience come with risks. The DFCS runs in active mode continuously. GPS receiver, inertial navigation, digital communications, all of it radiating an electromagnetic signal. For self-propelled howitzers, that's dangerous too, but they can immediately relocate after firing. A towed 777 cannot. So for crews fighting from fixed positions, That's a serious problem. The towed 777 has a range of 24 kilometers with standard rounds. Today, that's roughly the distance to the front line.
About 8 kilometers to the Russians.
That means the 777 is firing practically from the front edge of the battle area. Radiating a signal in those conditions is basically handing a burglar a key to your front door, because Russian EW systems run non-stop and cover dozens of kilometers. That's exactly why Ukrainians are pulling the CLE module, without which the whole system goes dark, and switching to what they call radio silence mode. But that does not mean the 777 is shooting blind.
We have a target, Russian trench positions. We're about to make their trenches a little deeper.
Before you see what Ukrainians are using instead of the American system,
Don't forget to subscribe to the Weapons of Victory channel and hope to see you soon. And all of this weight will fall to the Russians' heads.
Ukrainians have proven that the 777 can operate completely independently. The commander holds a standard tablet running the Kropyva app, which ties reconnaissance and fire assets into a single shared operational picture. Any Ukrainian unit can enter coordinates of detected Russian positions or equipment directly into the system. By NATO classification, this falls under the C2 type, Command and Control. It means the scout and the artillerymen are looking at the same screen. Scouts don't need to call the artillery. Commanders don't need to call the scouts. Everything is in the app. The battery commander simply distributes targets between gun commanders, and from there it's straightforward. The Kropyva combat control system has a ballistic calculator built in for the 777. Once the gun coordinates, target coordinates, and weather data are entered, the app outputs barrel elevation angle, azimuth, and charge type. The gunners use classic mechanical sights and an optical panoramic sight, spinning the hand wheels manually the old-school artillery way until the mechanical scales on the howitzer match the numbers they were given. Then the commander gives the order.
Заряжай! Пострел!
If the howitzer is properly zeroed, the margin of error is around 3 meters.
Just keep the shells coming. 2 or 3 rounds, and the crew conceals the gun, barrel lowered to the ground, branches thrown on top.
Everything's clean, actually perfect.
When a target is destroyed, it disappears from the app. And no, this is not a product from BAE Systems or Palantir. Kropyva was born in volunteer chat groups. People at the Pentagon genuinely don't understand how something like this happened without hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. But none of this means 777 crews are safe, because counter-battery fire is very much still in play. Russian radars are scanning the sky non-stop. The 777 is being hunted hard.
Quiet. Sounds like artillery working, but not on us this time. When we hear it coming in, we'll have about 10 seconds to find cover. Better to hit the ground immediately.
A counter-battery radar doesn't need a GPS signal. It needs a shot. While the shell is still in flight, the radar tracks its trajectory. In fractions of a second, the algorithm works backward along that trajectory and locates the firing point with accuracy down to tens of meters. Those coordinates go straight to an enemy battery. From the moment the 777 fires to the moment the return strike lands, it's just a few minutes. That's why artillery crews never bunk near the gun. The 777 takes the counter-strike alone. Even deep fortified gun pits often don't save it.
Our howitzers have taken hits from Lancets, Grad MLRSs, and Krasnopol rounds, but we always bring them back.
Wounded howitzers end up here. Hard to recognize the king of the herd in that wreckage. Can they be restored? Hard to believe, but yes.
Western partners don't get it. For them, it wouldn't even qualify as scrap metal, let alone something worth repairing.
Ukrainians can't afford to throw a gun away, because a replacement might never come. So they strip whatever's left of a 777 down to the last individual part. Every piece that survived might be needed later, because from those pieces, they essentially build an entirely different howitzer. But some components have to be restored from scratch, and that's where things get complicated.
Look at the size of the shrapnel coming in.
Titanium gun. That's another name for the 777, because titanium is used extensively throughout its construction. That metal cut the system's weight nearly in half compared to similar howitzers. But it became a problem, because titanium is not ordinary steel.
The guns come in with all kinds of damage. A lot of it is shrapnel damage.
Ukrainians have mastered the technology of welding titanium surfaces on damaged artillery systems. This had never been done in Ukraine before, because titanium is a demanding metal, and only a handful of people in the entire world can weld it without cracks or deformation.
We are in contact with our Western partners. In video calls, we broadcast the entire 777 restoration process and other details. In some cases, they're learning from us. They say so themselves.
BAE Systems, after seeing Ukrainian repair shops, was so impressed it opened talks about cooperation, starting with maintenance work in Ukraine and potentially moving toward production down the line.
Some guns come back a second, third, even fourth time because I recognize my own welds.
The scale of artillery fire in this war is apocalyptic. So 777s need restoration not only because of combat damage, but simply from physical wear and tear. With spare parts running short, even solutions like this become relevant. That's a hydraulic pneumatic accumulator pulled from a tractor. At that point, the question of whether the 777 is a British howitzer or an American one stops mattering entirely. The real question becomes whether it's even a 777 at all. Let everyone resolve the George Washington's axe paradox for themselves. But the main question remains. Is the M777 still the king of the herd in a war where hundreds of FPVs are circling in the sky at any given moment? Is restarting production of these howitzers actually a mistake? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Ukraine is among the top 3 largest operators of Humvees in the world, about 6,000 units.
Thanks to the Americans for this equipment.
But only here does the order of the Humvee exist.
There is a secret chat in Ukraine where only those who work with Humvees communicate.
We invoke the steel.
You are watching how a Humvee priest, in the presence of crew goblins, conducts an initiation rite for the fresh meat, who doesn't yet know that Humvee doors don't just close, you force them to.
Everything here is very heavy, absolutely every part. This old girl needs a strong crew to keep her rolling.
However, the military guys still love it for its self-sacrifice, in the literal sense of the word. Because if you strip down one Humvee, you can restore 26 others. Engine, transmission, suspension, pedals, controls, wiring, even doors and seats. All of it is modular and essentially bolt-on across different Humvee variants.
It's like a Lego set. The main thing is to know the sequence.
That is why Ukrainians try to recover even completely destroyed vehicles from the battlefield. Because a Humvee doesn't die, it gets distributed among the living. This is an important feature because transport on the front line is always in short supply. But it is still considered the sledgehammer of vehicles. And that is not a flaw. Because
today the Humvee took a hit from a 14.5mm round. But it's nothing. It can be restored.
even the armored modifications are designed only for protection against a 7.62mm bullet and shrapnel. How did the Humvee survive such shelling? There is a secret here. To the surprise of the Americans, the Ukrainian military discovered that the Humvee is actually a Swiss Army knife. Which modifications are the rarest, and which turned out to be the most useful in the conditions of modern war? Why did the Ukrainian operational experience shock even the creators of the Hum? Which part here is the smallest and at the same time the most important? Right now, you will see everything with your own eyes. The Humvee is already warming up, and you still haven't hit the like button. Fix that. Especially since the order of the Humvee doesn't recruit just anyone.
Tell me, where are we going, bro? To the enemies.
The Ukrainian army received its first Humvees back in 2001. Although they are not that old, in this war they are like aliens from the past. A significant part of the fleet in Ukraine is soft skin modifications that were not designed for frontline combat. This has happened before in its career. Back in the day, even before the appearance of the official armored version of the Humvee, the American military bolted steel plates on the outside. Ukrainians are doing the exact same thing to adapt them to the conditions that have developed on the battlefield right now.
This is not a welded construction. Everything here is attached with bolts.
They bolt on additional plates on the outside or mount Kevlar elements inside, which retain the bullet or its fragments even with partial penetration of the outer layer.
If a piece of shrapnel penetrates the armor, it gets stuck in this lining.
But what about the glass? Because 14.5mm rounds have colossal energy, and usually pierce light armored vehicles. The armored glass that is currently being produced in Ukraine for Humvees is often made thicker than the original American ones, so that it can withstand heavier hits and close artillery bursts. To withstand a 50 caliber or 14.5 millimeters, the thickness of the block increases from the standard 60 millimeters to 100 millimeters, and even more, 140 millimeters. But, as you can see, it saves the crew's lives. The weight of such a block is from 60 kilograms. That is why it is bolted on the outside, so that it doesn't kill anyone from the crew during a crash or a strike. The external placement allows leaving the Humvee quickly in a critical situation.
If the vehicle is on its side, you won't open the heavy doors. Then you just turn these handles and the glass falls out.
Of course, the blind application of non-standard solutions can be fatal, because the excessive weight reduces the lifespan of the components. Fortunately, back in the day, the Hum received a huge safety margin for the base chassis. It's as if the American engineers guessed that a harsh fate was waiting for it. The sheer strength of the chassis allows you to create any modifications on this platform. In Ukraine, special units handle this. Later on, you will see their work. But if the frame can be reinforced, what about the engine and the automatic transmission? Because an extra 1 or 1.5 tons is a noticeable difference. Unarmored versions often have a 3-speed transmission. This is a problem, so they try to swap them out for a 4-speed one, which easily handles the heavy weight thanks to electronic control. A Humvee transmission swap is a relatively simple and well-known trick in the States, so we won't get hung up on that. But the V8 Humvee deserves special attention.
There hasn't been a single time when it didn't start.
This monster is capable of running on anything. The main thing is that the bulk of the fuel cocktail consists of something that burns. Everything else could be donkey piss for all it cares. And all of this without complex electronics. But sometimes rain or a puddle forces the mighty GM Detroit diesel to fall silent. The issue is in this little breather valve on the fuel lift pump. If it breaks, water from the rain or puddles easily gets into the fuel line. And because of a penny part the size of a fingernail, a massive military all-terrain vehicle with a V8 becomes immobilized. And this is the drain hole, the most important hole in the Humvee. Ascent is almost twice the size of this opening, through which dirt, water, and used oil are supposed to drain out from the valley of the block. But if the drain gets clogged, the fuel pump dies, the engine stalls, and the Humvee becomes a target. You'll be surprised, but the Humvee's engine has very modest power and torque, on the level of a civilian SUV. Why then is the Hum's off-road capability on the level of heavy tracked vehicles? Here in the wheels, a very atypical thing is implemented. Portal gear hubs. Unlike a regular car, it adds an extra step between the axle and the wheel. Just like a tractor, this extra gear multiplies the torque right at the wheel, giving it the massive grunt needed to crawl through anything. As a result, the Hum digs in until it bottoms out on its belly. And when it does bottom out, your best helper is a shovel. You can take your time, because the Frontline is far away. Today, you almost won't find them on the battlefield. The days of dashing attacks with a Ma-Deuce on the roof, as you understand, are gone. However, this does not mean that Humvees are standing idle in the garage. It has evolved. From an attack vehicle, it has turned into a workhorse. It transports ammo, evacuates the wounded. But you could use other pickup trucks for this, couldn't you?
It's impossible to compare. A pickup truck is repaired every day, a Humvee once every few months.
Timely evacuation often means a saved life of a fighter. Thousands of Humvees on the front line means thousands of saved people, every single day. Therefore, the usefulness of the American vehicle is hard to overestimate.
With the help of this Humvee, we evacuate the wounded, thanks to the free world for the help.
And they also mount other weapons and equipment on it.
It has been modified. A UMZ is installed here, a system for remote mining.
Each of these blocks contains 30 charges with anti-tank magnetic mines, which are ejected by explosive squibs to a distance of up to 100 meters from the vehicle. But the main thing is, the mining can be carried out at full speed.
If you drive at a speed of 40 kilometers per hour, the operator presses a button on the remote control every 2 seconds.
Thanks to their exceptional characteristics and off-road capability, Humvees are often used as a platform for heavy weaponry. On the two-seater M1152 versions, they mount guide rails from multiple rocket launcher systems. You can mount any improvised multiple rocket launcher system here, because the sturdy chassis will withstand any recoil. In addition, Ukrainians operate a small number of specialized vehicles based on the Avenger anti-aircraft systems, mobile anti-tank complexes with TOWs, and launchers for APKWS's guided rockets. And even self-propelled 105mm 2CT Hawkeye howitzers. This is the rarest Humvee-based equipment in the world, because even American units don't have the 2CT Hawkeye. Ukraine is the only country where you can meet this rare beast, because American generals, back in the day, rejected this cannon on wheels for some reason. At first glance, the idea of mounting an M20 on a Humvee chassis is quite simple, but that's not the case. Soft recoil technology, SRT, is applied here. Its purpose is to absorb and reduce recoil forces by moving the cannon forward before firing and then using a hybrid recoil mechanism to return it to its initial position. Without SRT, the shot won't be accurate. There is a separate video about the 2CT Hawkeye on our channel. We recommend watching it after finishing this video. But right now, you will see something that no army in the world operating Humvees has. When the number of Humvees in Ukraine started to be measured in the thousands, the military realized they needed a specialized service because the vehicles were being repaired either directly within the units or at private repair shops. That is when Ukrainians designed something that didn't even exist in the army yet.
I did my training in the States, so I kept in touch with both the instructors and the manufacturer. When I asked if they had a maintenance vehicle that allows for a complete repair of any Humvee, they said that you need 3 maintenance vehicles for different tasks.
This trailer includes a full-fledged tire shop with wheel balancing, pneumatic and hydraulic jacks, a generator, a loader crane that allows swapping an engine right in the field in 2 to 3 hours, and 3 spare engines on board.
We swapped the engine even out in the field.
7 of these workshops on wheels are operating across all sectors of the front line. The repair protocols are strictly defined. Perhaps it is only thanks to these crews that Humvees in Ukraine are still in the fight. Write in the comments about your own experience operating the Hum, since we have a lot of military folks among our viewers. Or if you are not yet a member of the Order of the Humvee, drop your thoughts on the fact that Pete Hegseth ordered the army to stop purchasing obsolete systems, directly citing the Humvee as an example of excess equipment. But in the war in Ukraine, there are M113s, which are simpler, cheaper, and more reliable. There is practically nothing to break here. Well, almost.
Exit hole from a 30mm full penetration. You're not fixing that. This isn't a Humvee. You can't just replace a panel.
A few hours ago, this M113 ended up in a meat grinder. If a Humvee had been in its place, you'd be looking at scrap metal, because the enormous kinetic energy of a 30mm round can not only punch clean through a vehicle including the engine, it can destroy the frame or suspension. But this 113, or MK, as Ukrainians call it, looks surprisingly intact after a savage fight. Can it actually be brought back to life?
Here's the situation. The round came in from the side, hit the engine, and exited out the other side.
It's no wonder the Americans have been trying to get rid of it. The 113's hull is made from an aluminum alloy, not steel like the armored Humvee, and although the aluminum coffin weighs more than twice as much, it's debatable whether it's actually more survivable. But Ukrainians have found ways to make it both very aggressive and very useful in this war. After the war, Ukraine could host a championship in upgrading the 113. New weapons, new protection, full conversion to robotic platforms. You're about to see all of it. The M113 is a classic from the 1960s, simple and reliable. Its armor holds against 7.62 millimeters. That's exactly why Ukrainian assault troops in this footage drive right up to Russian positions with considerable confidence and engage in combat. And after completing the mission, they climb back into the M113 and pull back without drama. But that was 2 years ago. Today, the aluminum coffin's protection is no longer adequate, because drones are circling overhead. In this footage, a Russian FPV is chasing a 113 with an EW system on the roof. A Ukrainian soldier tries to shoot it down, miss. He quickly ducks back inside. Impact. This time it got off lucky. But as you can see, the net and the EW system guarantee nothing. The FPV punched a hole. If there had been a second and third FPV in the air, the result would have looked roughly like this. RPG warheads, which most FPVs carry, punch straight through the 113's special aluminum alloy armor.
RPG hit, clean through, including the instrument panel and the engine. There was a fire, but this baby saved all of us. Everyone made it out alive.
But then this unusual footage came our way. At the moment troops are loading up, the APC takes an RPG hit. The smoke clears and what? No penetration. Then another hit follows. Thick white smoke from the hatch indicates the fire suppression system activating. Think that's the end?
The explosion deafened me, so I looked at the tachometer and saw the needle trembling. That meant the engine was still running. I was shocked. I pressed the accelerator and the MK moved.
And indeed, the 113 coughs black smoke and starts rolling.
At that moment, I was the happiest person on the planet.
Hit like if you understand exactly what that driver was feeling.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Weapons of Victory channel and leave a comment.
And we continue. Among the over 1,900 M113 units Ukraine bought or received from allies, there are countless different versions of this vehicle. The most protected version of the 113 is considered to be the Australian variant. The aluminum coffin is covered in ceramic panels that stop 14.5mm rounds. The floor is reinforced with steel against mines and IEDs. Inside, lining that stops secondary fragments. But most of the 113s Ukraine received are just plain aluminum boxes. If you drive one near the front line, the question isn't whether something will hit you, it's from which direction. A heavy machine gun, an artillery fragment, an FPV, any one of those turns the APC into a crematorium. So Ukrainians do what soldiers have always done when the equipment fails them. They MacGyver it.
Just finished, added armor, welded on a cage, made a visor over the ramp, still need to hang the chains.
And there's your secret to the 113's resistance against RPGs. No factory version of the American APC has this kind of toughness. And that's not even the most exotic upgrade option. But gradually real combat has defined what the ideal 113 should look like. What you'll see next isn't a garage solution, it's a new modification being developed and tested right now by the Ukrainian army. And what about weapons? Oh, things get just as interesting there. The most aggressive, teeth-bared version of the American APC is arguably the Belgian variant, closely mirrored by the Dutch series.
This cannon demolishes everything.
That's a turret with a cannon, plus 180 rounds of 25mm arguments in reserve.
There were cases where this thing took apart a T-80.
And for dessert, an FN Mag 7.62mm machine gun. Because sometimes less is enough. We have a separate video on our channel about how the Benelux modification of the 113 fights in combat, so we won't go deep on that here. There's also a version with the Mark 19 grenade launcher.
I turn on this monitor, then I turn this on here. Done. It's ready to fire.
And this is a self-propelled 120mm mortar. The logic is simple: shoot and run. But all of that is the exotic stuff, because the majority of the 113 fleet in Ukraine consists of baseline models. For those, the Madus is the gold standard. The heavy machine gun is mounted on an open turret at the commander's hatch. On baseline models, 360-degree protection for the gunner is not standard. To fire, you have to expose yourself and become a target. But nobody wants that. So in Ukraine, American APCs are being fitted with structures that protect the gunner from snipers and fragments. Look at how many hits this turret has absorbed. Without it, that machine gunner would have been killed in the first second of the fight. But can you install a remote weapon station and turn the aluminum coffin into something that actually belongs in the 21st century? Certain Ukrainian units are installing the SARP dual combat module from Turkish defense company Aselsan. In the Ukrainian version, the combat module is fitted with 12.7mm and 7.62mm machine guns.
Other machine guns can't be installed right now. All the standard mounts were designed specifically for these.
The module is remotely operated, controlled from inside the APC, but can also be fired manually if needed. And this thing is helping shoot down Shaheeds. But what about assault missions? Australian and Dutch experience shows that virtually anything that shoots can be mounted on the 113 platform. By the way, the Americans at one point experimented with tactical nuclear weapons on it. Taking all of that experience together, Ukrainians have finally assembled something remarkable on the aluminum coffin platform. The technical requirement was simple: surpass the M113 in protection and firepower without losing cross-country mobility. Officially, it's called the Skiff APC, but the hull is aluminum, just like the 113. The armament is a remote weapon station with a 12.7mm or 14.5mm machine gun. Crew? 3 people plus 8 dismounts. Even if steel hulls replace the aluminum ones in production, the visual profile leaves no doubt. This is an improved American, or its European derivative. It withstands a 6-kilogram explosive detonation under the floor and point-blank 14.5mm hits to the frontal aspect. With the reinforced armor and combat module, its weight reaches 15 tons, but that's not a critical issue. The Ukrainian 113 is already in testing, but engineers noticed another brilliant feature of the aluminum coffin: its genius layout, like something designed in Minecraft or built with Lego. The Soviet Union once tried to copy it, but the result was poor. Look, the engine is pushed forward and to the side. The driver's position is on the other side. The result is a near-perfect rectangular box on the inside, with no protruding components, deep wells, or awkward corners, thanks to the compact transmission. A flat floor, that's the old 113's biggest advantage over modern APCs. Add a wide ramp on top of that. You can fit almost anything in here. It's a genuine storage unit, and Ukrainians are using it to transport evacuation robots for the wounded.
Evacuating the wounded is the hardest work. There's more adrenaline in it than in combat.
Here's the thing. You can build a small combat drone with a machine gun, but you can't build a small UGV for evacuating a wounded person, because its size has to match the size of a human body. Here's how it works. A remotely operated UGV returns with a wounded soldier on board. At a somewhat safer distance from the line of contact, an M113 is waiting for it. Watch. The UGV drives inside the armored vehicle like pulling into a garage. Now you have to move fast because its add-on protection might survive 1 or 2 FPV hits if lucky. But if there are more birds up there, well, you know how that ends.
Missions like these always come with a huge adrenaline rush, but they also always bring enormous joy when everything works out.
Just 2 to 3 years ago, it was widely believed that the war in Ukraine would be the 113's final mission. Too outdated, too obsolete. More than 80,000 units have been built since 1960, so Allies handed them to Ukraine without a second thought because disposal would have cost more. But today, the 113 is the only APC in the world that is better prepared than any other for cooperation with UGVs. This platform deserves a long life, and the man who made this APC possible deserves our gratitude. Thank you, General James M. Gavin. Thank you, Jumping Jim. You'll be surprised, but the M113 isn't the only thing Ukrainians are grateful to General James M. Gavin for.
Without the M2 Browning, this war would have been different.
And that's no exaggeration. When the Russians came, they were met with a wall of bullets. Mounted on a Humvee or an M113, the American heavy machine gun quickly became the true king of the assault.
When it's working, you can't even lift your head.
But now, rolling out on an M113 with a Modus on the roof, forget it. One hit and you're meeting your maker before you've even flicked the safety off. If in this footage the score is 10-0 in favor of the 50 cal after 10 seconds of fighting, and here an American volunteer is putting on a masterclass with the Modus during an assault in the early months of the war, well, today the score is always in favor of the drone operator. The Modus genuinely helped the Ukrainians a great deal. But FPV drones changed the rules of the game. Today the front is 5, 10, sometimes 15 kilometers of death, a solid kill zone. Where before a machine gun ruled when repelling an assault, now it's a drone carrying 3 kilograms of explosives. Small arms firefights are a rarity. It seems like in these conditions, every M2 Browning in the Ukrainian army should just be carefully greased up and sent to a warehouse until better times, if not for a new leap in the evolution of combat that's happening right now. Unmanned ground vehicles. At first, soldiers laughed at these robots, calling them turtles. But now Ukrainian UGVs and ground turrets with the Modus appear to be becoming a new phenomenon that's actually influencing the course of the war.
Everything that comes into the field of view doesn't fly any further.
Why did the old American machine gun become the perfect heart for the newest robots? And are ground drones really the new standard of warfare? And why are the Russians barely using them? Take off the rose-colored glasses. We're getting into it.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Weapons of Victory channel and hope to see you soon.
So the Russians first encountered a Ukrainian UGV near Kharkiv.
It was a surprise for them.
Honestly, this remotely operated cart with a turret isn't all that impressive at first glance, because this thing was literally built in a garage near the front line. So what's the operator's mission with this UGV?
War always means losses. We try to minimize them.
First, the UGV pushes through ruins where an enemy could be hiding. Then the operator drives it out into open ground, where the life expectancy of an infantryman is measured in minutes. The drone also has a tough time here due to limited mobility over rough terrain. Finally, the drone opens fire toward Russian positions hiding in a tree line. Of course, this isn't precision fire, because the recoil from the 50 cal makes the platform shake like a leaf in the wind. Pure chaos. But will anyone be brave enough to return fire? Experience shows there are no such madmen. So the UGV laying down suppressive fire covers the movement of friendly infantry. That's the first thing. And second, it draws fire from Russian mortar crews, which reveals their firing positions. What happened next? A few hours after this strange-looking probe, which at first glance looked like pure chaos, the Ukrainians hit the newly identified Russian positions with artillery, then assault, and take that tree line. If you want to see how that whole operation went from start to finish, we have a separate video about that assault on our channel. So just 12 months after their debut near Kharkiv, Ukrainian UGVs don't look improvised anymore. But standard solutions almost don't exist, because UGVs are being produced not only by many Ukrainian manufacturers, but also within individual units themselves. So everything is constantly being upgraded. Controls, batteries, hull, software. The one thing that stays unchanged, the M2 Browning. In that time, they've run thousands of missions. From resupplying the front and evacuating wounded soldiers to full-on assaults without a single human involved. You're about to see what that looks like. And yeah, the M2 Browning is doing most of the talking. So,
They drove into the village in the fog in cars, but then our UAV spotted them.
the UGV rolls in to settle the matter. The operator stares hard at the screen. No point waiting. The floor is given to the Modus. Wait, what's happening here? The Russians are surrendering? Yes.
The thing is, the sound of an American heavy machine gun firing is absolutely terrifying. Plus, the sound of FPVs circling overhead.
And here's a little discovery about something not widely known about human psychology. Something that neither psychologists, nor science fiction writers, nor robot movie makers know, because this knowledge only comes from experience.
Yes, there's an interesting psychological factor here. A person understands another person because they can read their intentions from external cues, mood, voice, posture, and so on. But when you're facing a chunk of metal with a 50 cal, you have no idea what's coming next, whether it will shoot or not. That uncertainty is terrifying and paralyzing. That's exactly why they look so confused when they surrender.
But as you understand, the Modus isn't mounted on UGVs just to scare the enemy. It's there to guarantee hits on targets. On the early robots, the American heavy machine gun fired chaotically because the platform shook with every shot. But over time, Ukrainians tamed those vibrations with a stabilizer and a fire control system. Here's how it works. After each shot, the AI calculates how much the barrel has deviated from the aiming point due to recoil and platform vibration. The operator simply gives the fire command or marks the target on a tablet, and the brain inside the turret decides the exact moment to pull the trigger. This is where another feature of the M2 Browning reveals itself. Its perfect mechanical timing. The impulse of the gun doesn't happen before the shot, but after it. When the round is in the barrel, there's an ideal micropause. And it's precisely at that moment that the shot fires, and the bullet leaves the barrel. Even an experienced machine gunner can't catch that moment manually. This delivers incredible accuracy. So much so that it has now become possible to engage aerial targets flying at speeds of 400 kilometers per hour.
Our main targets are Shaheeds, and yesterday we shot down a jet-powered Shaheed for the first time.
Where a machine gunner would burn through 50 rounds, the AI-powered system does it in just a few shots. These are remotely operated turrets based on the Browning M2 that independently find and identify targets and transmit the image to an operator who can be located far away. The job of the person with the gamepad in hand is simply to give the fire command. The fire control system allows it to operate at night too. These are footage from a nighttime clearing of a village house. In front of the UGV operator is a screen with a live feed from a camera and a thermal imager. A drone in the sky controls the surrounding space. And there's the house. If a Ukrainian fighter were there instead of the robot, the advantage would be with the Russian, because he's in cover. The UGV opens fire. The Russian thinks it's some kind of crazy Ukrainian, because nobody shoots while standing in the open. That only happens in movies. The Russian returns fire. But a robot isn't a person who ducks for cover, so the American heavy machine gun coldly finishes the job. Of course, operations like these are supported by recon UAVs and systems to counter Russian EW jamming, because without a signal, any UGV turns into helpless scrap metal. But as you can see, in just a matter of months, UGVs have significantly changed how Ukraine fights.
First our UGV clears the street, and only then do the guys move in.
So why aren't the Russians taking advantage of what robots offer? The Russian army has large platforms weighing 7 to 10 tons. They're too visible to Ukrainian recon drones and too vulnerable to artillery. On top of that, they're extremely rare, so Russian unit commanders can't deploy them everywhere. It's simpler to send a person on the assault, someone you don't have to file a stack of reports over when they're lost. And the final argument: the Russian army doesn't have the Browning M2. Russian 50 cal equivalents are not as stable or reliable. The Ukrainian army is betting on small, cheap, modular systems that are easy to hide and not too painful to lose. Hundreds of private companies and volunteer groups are competing with each other to build the best UGV. Developers stay in close contact with frontline units, so battlefield experience is immediately fed back into new models with better firmware and mechanical solutions. But the Russians are learning fast how to counter Ukrainian UGVs.
Every time our UGV goes out, it gets met by FPVs, but it takes the hit and keeps going.
Here's a robot meeting an FPV ambush drone, and here's one robot pulling another off the battlefield. You used to only see that kind of thing in Marvel comics. Look at how many robots were hit at a range of 100 meters. But that's exactly the point. It means a lot of soldiers' lives were saved. The US Army is studying Ukrainian experience closely.
Yes, sir. Just as a general way of doing business, their level of innovation is out of this world.
Who knows? Maybe we'll soon see a ground operation where UGVs are the main players on the battlefield. But there's a problem. American equivalents cost tens of times more, because they're more loaded with features. Drop a comment and tell us, what's better? Having a limited number of feature-packed robots, or betting on quantity? And overall, do you think UGVs are really the future? Yet, the hardest missions in this war are still executed by the people holding small arms instead of joysticks. During combat, fighters don't have time for sensors and artificial intelligence. What saves them is their sheer will, a dependable weapon, and tough transport. The heroes of this video were born a long time ago, but without them, this war would look very different. Fortunately, they were once produced in massive numbers, so they're still in the fight today. It was precisely that scale of production that shaped their fate. And now, for the most dedicated of you, a short special report straight from our studio, filmed right at the front line. Watch as the 25th Brigade, 7th Corps of the Air Assault Forces holds the line so our infantry can breathe.
This is the work of artillerists from the 25th Brigade, 7th Corps of the Air Assault Forces, holding the line for our infantry. They're targeting enemy positions on the outskirts of Hreischein.
There was a small assault group there. We fired 5 rounds, enemy hit. The last 2 landed right on target. -1 assault group. Now that's a good Russian.
Word of a successful strike gets back almost instantly.
Right away they're dropping fire emojis, thumbs up. Right away the command comes back like, hit them again. One more time.
The artillerists of the 25th Brigade have no shortage of work. The enemy keeps pushing to break through Hreischein and dig in toward Dobropilia.
They try to assault every single day, multiple times. Small groups, 2, 3, 4 men at a time.
We'll show you how a gun crew actually operates. But first, let's talk about how we got to the paratroopers' positions.
I check the intel they feed me. Muddy, clear, can we move, can we not? And I report along the route point by point. We hit a checkpoint, I get a thumbs up, that means we're good. If they message me that it's time to run and take cover, and we're out in the open, we don't stop. We push to the nearest cover no matter what. If we spot even a small bush, we spread out as far from the vehicle as possible. Priority number 1 is not us, it's the equipment.
On site, Valentin meets us, commander of the M109 Paladin howitzer. While the crews are unloading ammunition, we ask him how the gun team runs.
I calculate the settings and pass them to the gun. The gunner receives them, issues commands at the piece, a certain charge, a certain load, and corrections to his assistant, who sets the sight, while the gunner sets the elevation.
Andriy is the senior gunner. Speed and accuracy of the strike depend on him.
I take all the numbers, I run the occupancy here, and I manage the crew here. I call what to bring, what to hand over.
The driver mechanic brings the gun into position, camouflages it, and keeps it battle-ready throughout the fight.
Our work is a team effort, and for the driver mechanic, that's obviously vehicle maintenance. Plus, I handle the powder charges, that's extra work on top of that, plus camouflage and decamouflage. I love this energy. This is fire right here.
Since the start of April on the Pokrovsk axis, nearly 700 enemy assault attacks have been recorded. The occupiers are pouring most of their effort into trying to hold Hreischein and push the offensive further. The artillerists of the 25th Brigade, 7th Corps of the Air Assault Forces, together with other Defense Forces units, are breaking those assaults every day and destroying enemy forces before they even get close, stopping the Russian advance deeper into Donetsk Oblast.
Now, a few words from us, your team behind this video. This episode took us an enormous amount of time and effort to put together. Hours of research, digging through declassified documents, military reports, combat footage, and technical data from across the globe. So if this video gave you something, whether it was knowledge, inspiration, or just pure excitement, please leave a comment below. We genuinely read every single one. What we witnessed here isn't just military ingenuity, it's something deeper. It's the story of a nation that looks at what others throw away and sees potential. That takes obsolete and turns it into unstoppable. That rewrites the rules of modern warfare with tools forged in another era. Russia came with brand new equipment, fresh doctrine, and overwhelming numbers. And it got humbled by iron, by creativity, and by sheer Ukrainian determination. And there you have it. Friends, 5 legends, 5 stories, 5 weapons that the world had written off, and Ukraine brought them back from the dead. And here's the big question we want to ask you directly. What should we cover next? Drop your ideas in the comments. Write in the comments whether you think Western armies moved too early toward expensive, complex systems, while other armies kept betting on mass production. We want to hear what you think. And in these playlists, you'll find more videos about Western weapons fighting in Ukraine. If you made it this far, 1 full hour with us, you are exactly the kind of viewer that makes this channel worth building. Thank you. Seriously. From the entire team, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay safe and support Ukraine.